It's starting soon. All right. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I was just wondering.
Thank you.
Right. Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Stephen Robinson, the leader of Chelmsford City Council. Welcome to question time for the Cabinet. And with me this evening, I have the other 4 members of the Cabinet at the City Council. And we've got the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Connected Chelmsford, Marie Goldman, the Cabinet Member for Fairer Chelmsford, Chris Davison, the Cabinet Member for Greener and Safer Chelmsford, Rose Moore, and the Cabinet Member for Sustainable Development, Mike McCrory. We're going to be taking a number of questions from you this evening. We've had some questions submitted already. If hopefully you are following this on the Facebook feed, you can see a box to ask questions, but we're going to start with a couple of questions that have already come in. Hopefully the feed works throughout the evening, and we hope you find it useful. If we get too many questions coming in and we can't answer them all, then we will deal with them offline. We'll try and respond to you separately. And we're going to try and keep this to an hour, but we'll see how it goes. So we'll get back in touch if necessary. So anyway, moving on to our first question. We've got a question from D. Watson, and it's relating to the current to the coronavirus testing. And he says, tell me, how does a person with symptoms and with no means of getting to a testing centre get tested without coming into contact with other people? They were told to stay at home. Isn't this conflicting information? Councillor Goldman, can you answer that question?
Yeah, thanks very much, and thank you for the question. Obviously, if you have symptoms of coronavirus, you absolutely must stay at home and you must get a test. And those two things do sound actually quite contradictory, don't they? Well, how can you stay at home and get a test at the same time? Well, there are 2 different ways of getting a test. You can either go to a testing centre, and our testing centre, the regional testing centre, is actually at Stansted. And if you are able to get to Stansted, if you're able to drive to Stansted, or have, if you're able to drive to Stansted, then you won't come into contact with anybody else, because it's all done while you're in your car. So you can go there and get a test, or you can order a home testing kit. And if you order a home testing kit, then obviously one will be sent to you and you do your test at home and then you send it back. If you go to Stansted and get tested, you should get your results within about 24 hours. And if you do a home testing kit, you should get your results back within about 48 hours. Either way, though, you must get a test, whether it's a home test or going to Stansted, within 5 days of displaying symptoms. So you really must do that. So don't stop, don't wait. Now, to order a test or to apply for a test online, you can either call 119 from your phone, or you can apply for a test online. I've just got it written in front of me. So it's you go to www.nhs.uk/ask-for-a-coronavirus-test. So that's www.nhs.uk/ ask for a coronavirus test. So if you have symptoms, then you and members of your household must stay at home until you get your result, and you have to self-isolate for the required amount of time if the result is positive. And the only reason to leave home at that point is to get a test. So it's really, really important that we all follow those guidelines. The question is, what happens then? So let's say that your test comes back and it's negative. Well, then great, you can kind of carry on with your life as normal. But if it's positive, then what would you expect to happen next? And what you'd expect to happen next is that you would get contacted by NHS's test and trace system. And then they will ask you who you've been in contact with over the last few days. And you must give that information over to them. And then that allows them to trace your contacts. That's the tracing bit. You've done the testing bit, and this is the tracing bit of the of the system, where they trace your contacts, find out who you've been in contact with, and trace them, and make sure that they get a test as well, just to see if they have contracted the virus. And that's how we kind of isolate those clusters, those people that could be spreading the virus without symptoms. Might be spreading the virus completely unwittingly as well. So that's really important that if you do test positive, and if you're contacted by the test and trace system in particular, that you follow their instructions. And it's, like I said, even if you don't have symptoms, you may be contacted by the NHS, or it might be your local authority that contacts you. So it might be somebody from either Chelmsford City Council or one of the other tracing organisations, including Essex County Council, to tell you that someone you've been in contact with has tested positive. And this may mean that you have to self-isolate for 14 days. And look, we know that this is really hard, especially if you're not displaying any symptoms, you feel absolutely fine, you need to go to work. I know this is hard, but you do have to self-isolate for that amount of time. You do have to follow those guidelines. Do be aware, though, you will never be asked for any financial details or any bank details. So if anybody asks you for those over the phone, don't give them out. So just and then just to finish up, let's talk about the 2-metre rule and test and trace. If you've been in contact with someone who has tested positive for coronavirus and you've stayed 2 metres apart from them, then you are likely to be asked to be mindful of the symptoms. If you haven't stayed at least 2 metres apart, then you'll be asked to self-isolate for 14 days. If you keep following the rules about social distancing, then your chances of having to self-isolate will be reduced. So I guess follow the guidelines, follow the social distancing guidelines. But great question, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and then we've got a similar related question, which is about face coverings. And the government's told us that from Friday, we all have to wear them in shops and supermarkets. We've all got our masks ready. I'll come back to that in a moment. But Councillor McCrory, what can we expect in our local shops, do you think?
Yes, thank you. So from this Friday, the 24th of July, we'll all have to wear face coverings in shops and supermarkets, and that's along with public transport, which of course is already the case. And this is because it's very hard to maintain social distancing in shops because of the limited amount of space. And so face coverings help in these particular situations. So face coverings are part of the collective action which we all must take to keep our city safe. And indeed, if you travel to other shopping centres, the same applies. So masks may offer some protection for the wearer, but it's the collective act of wearing masks in places like shops and public transport that makes a real difference. So my mask will protect you and vice versa. So question then arises, can a shop refuse entry if you aren't wearing a mask? Well, I think we all know that shops are private property and they are within their rights to stop you from entering for any reason actually, but if you do not wear a mask, they're quite within their rights to refuse entry. So it's up to them whether they actually do so, but obviously that is the very clear advice and it would be very sensible to follow that advice. So there are some exemptions, and I believe my colleague, Councillor Moore, will follow on with that one. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor McCrory. Yes, there are indeed exemptions to having to wear masks. It can be very frustrating if you're out in public and you see people within a confined space who aren't wearing masks, but we need to stop and ask ourselves the question, are they medically unable to wear a mask? If you have a condition like severe asthma or another hidden disability, you do not have to wear a mask in these circumstances. So how do we identify people, and more importantly, if you are someone who cannot wear a mask, how can you identify yourself and make sure that people are there to support you so you're not challenged? There is a very comprehensive national scheme called the Sunflower Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme, and that is supported by businesses. Chelmsford City Council is supporting it, and if you go to our website, we have recently updated it to provide information on this. There should be a link appearing in the Facebook chat shortly for you, I understand. The sunflower design on a lanyard that you wear around your neck or on a wallet indicates that someone needs you to understand that they have a hidden disability. They're facing a different kind of challenge. And so we hope that you will be patient and kind when you're out shopping. Be safe, be patient, be kind. Follow those rules and understand that if you are exempt, the Sunflower Scheme is there to help you. And I highly recommend you find out more information on that online. I hope that's helpful.
Thanks very much for that. We've had various ideas of face coverings, and some people are making their own. Councillor Goldman, can you tell us about anything about making your own mask?
Yeah, so I've done a bit of research into this, and first of all, what counts as a face covering? You know, what does it have to be? Does it have to be an official mask? Does it have to be any old piece of material? Will that do? What can you actually use? Well, I mean, there's so many things that you can buy. Of course, you can buy single-use disposable masks, like the sort of masks that we see doctors and nurses wearing in hospitals. And I know that those have been in the pandemic quite difficult to get hold of. And so, you know, lots of people have been making their own masks. And also something to bear in mind about those is that they're absolutely perfect, you know, for in certain medical situations, for example, but they are single use. And in this world of, you know, we want to reuse stuff as much as we can, then it's really good to think about whether we can use cloth face coverings that can then be washed. Use them once, go out, use them once, and then bring them home and chuck them in the washing machine, and use another one. So it's good to have a few of the cloth based ones. Now, and that's the difference when we're talking about a face mask versus a face covering. We're thinking about really the face masks, or the kind of official masks that you might see for doctors and nurses, and specifically rated ones. And face coverings are just really anything that you use to cover up your nose and mouth. And the really important thing about that is it must cover your nose and your mouth. I have seen lots of people, unfortunately, wandering around with it just kind of covering their mouth and missing their nose. And really, it's about the air that we're exhaling. It's about what's coming out of us that's important. And also some suggestions I've seen of people saying, well, we could put a vent in the mask, and in normal circumstances that would make sense, right? Because the vents are there to, you know, or a filter that would filter the air as it comes in, and then let you, when you exhale, it freely flows out like a one-way valve. The problem is we don't want the stuff that's coming out of us to freely flow out in this time. So please just use a cloth covering. But you can buy them, of course, and there's plenty of shops that are selling them, but also it's quite easy to make them if you're lucky enough to have a sewing machine at home. And I must admit I'm quite lucky, although it doesn't get quite as much use as it probably should do. But I've been brushing up on my sewing skills, and I found various patterns online, and this is one that I've made, and it fits quite snugly over my nose. I'm going to show you this like that. I can pull it down, and that. But you have to find patterns that kind of work for you, and we can put some links into the Facebook chat at some point. I'm showing the link to this one that I made, and some of them have video tutorials. But you can make them out of old T-shirts. You can make them out of various things that you've got lying around. In fact, if you don't have a sewing machine, you can either sew by hand, or some of the patterns online require no sewing at all. So there are loads and loads of resources out there. And I think just to demonstrate how many different types of face coverings there are now, you've seen mine, and I believe that other members of the cabinet might have some to show you. So, Councillor Moore, what have you got? What have you got there? And she's got a lovely one which goes around her neck. You see how it's covering both her nose and her mouth, and there we go, nice and simple, but very effective. I like how it matches your top as well. Very nice. I think
I've got mine.
Yeah, let's have a look. Oh, it's a Lib Dem yellow one.
Well, orangey yellow, yeah.
Yes, that'd be nice, snugly fitting. Councillor McCrory, have you got one with you? Over your eyes, not quite.
I need a mirror. Yes, I'm fairly conventional, I'm afraid, just plain black.
And Councillor Davidson, what have you got with you?
This one used to be a tea towel. I used to dry up with this. I've been wearing it in shops for several months now.
Fabulous. And washing in between. And I think you've got a lovely neighbour who's been making some as well, and that was this
I do.
one. Yeah. What was that one made out of?
An alternative one, which one of my fantastic neighbours has been making. She's made a lot of these and been distributing them. And I'm not quite sure what material she's used for this, but this one fits very snugly.
Lovely. So lots of different designs, but the important thing is it covers both your nose and your mouth. And as Councillor McCrory said earlier, we wear masks so that we protect you, and you wear masks so that you protect us. And collectively, we all work together and we protect each other. So hopefully that's clear, and we'll put some links hopefully in the Facebook chat.
And I think it's also worth adding, of course, the really important thing. This is all about still keeping distance from people and washing your hands as probably the single most effective thing we can do to stop spreading the virus. So, and just before we move off this topic, we just had a question come in on the message bar from Matt. Thank you, Matt. And Matt's asked a question: if there's a second peak of the virus, what are the City and Essex County Council preparing to do? So every county council, every social care authority, so in our case that's Essex County Council, has had to lead on the production of a test, trace and isolate and contain plan. Everybody had to publish their plans on the 29th of June. So if you go to the Essex County Council website, you can find the action plan that's been posted there. And just set up this week are two brand new sort of committees or task forces, and one which has been regrouped. For a long time, there's been an organisation called the Essex Resilience Forum. And of that, there's a subgroup called the Strategic Coordination Group, and that includes all of the emergency services and the councils and the NHS. So all the key people who are involved in keeping us safe. And that group is chaired either by the Chief Constable or the Deputy Chief Fire Officer. And that was meeting twice a week early on in the crisis. And that stepped down for a while, and now has regrouped under the the Strategic Coordination Group. The two brand new things is the Health Protection Board, which is principally the Director of Public Health at the Essex County Council and his officers, working closely with the environmental health officers and the trading standards people. So that's the environmental officers at the district councils like Chelmsford and the trading standards at the county council. And they will be reviewing all of the data that comes out of the testing centres that we were talking about earlier. They will review the data at least twice a week, and they will meet once a week to decide whether any action needs to be taken. And then there's a second group, which is called the Outbreak Engagement Board, which I and four other council leaders in Essex, plus the leader of the county council, have been asked to join, plus some of the chief executives. And the Outbreak Engagement Board, their role will be to promote the messages about what needs to happen if there is an outbreak of coronavirus in a particular setting. And as we know, the most likely place would be a care home or something like that, or possibly a school. And the Health Protection Board will decide whether that needs to be closed down or isolated, and the engagement group will communicate those messages out across, certainly across that district and wider Essex. So there is a plan in place, and at the moment those groups are standing by and will meet more often if necessary, if there is an outbreak or a broader based second spike. So I hope that answers your question, Matt, and thanks for raising it. The next topic, we've had a question in from, I'm guessing it's from, is it from Mace Place? And we've also, before the meeting, had some questions in about support for local businesses. So it's good that we've already had some questions in, and there's one in the chat this evening. So let's move on to how we are supporting businesses. And first of all, Councillor Davison, whose responsibility includes finance, can talk about the grants and things that we've been dealing with recently.
Yeah, businesses have been able to apply for financial help under various government schemes. Some of them are operated by HM Revenue and Customs. They've got the job retention scheme, under which businesses that furlough staff get support from the government, plus the self-employed income support scheme. But there are other schemes that are operated by Chelmsford City Council. The first couple of schemes for eligible local businesses are the ones where they can apply for grants. There are two schemes here. The leisure, hospitality and retail grants are 25,000 or 10,000. And then there's also the small business grant scheme for businesses that pay little or no business rates. And those are grants of also 10,000. So to date, around 2,400 local businesses have received one of those grants, and well over £30 million in total has been paid out. Those schemes are still available. So if you're a business and you think you might qualify, well, please check. The information is on the council website, and I'll come back to that. The other category of scheme is what's known as the discretionary grant scheme, which Chelmsford City Council is running. This is a government-backed, government-funded scheme that's aimed at businesses that have fixed property costs, have large falls in their income that they've suffered as a consequence of COVID-19, but these businesses didn't qualify for the other grants that I've just described. Now, although described as discretionary, the government has restricted what we can provide in two ways. Firstly, by limiting the funding, and secondly, by setting out several key requirements before businesses are able to apply. Nevertheless, we've designed a scheme which a round of funding applications was invited. That closed on the 12th of July. We have received applications now in total for over £600,000 of grants. These grants are between 1,000 and 10,000. We've paid out on most of those who qualify. We're asking for further detail from some applicants and finalising our analysis of the claims that we've received. We're then expecting that we'll be working on a further round of applications, because there is more funding available, and we are determined that we will distribute the full funds available to Chelmsford businesses. And again, the details can be found on the council website. If you go to Chelmsford City Council, just put that in your search engine. The front page has a coronavirus tab. Go on that and you'll find the business along with a whole load of other information on there, but click on the business one and you'll find it from there, and we'll post the link, I'm sure, in the chat box. And now I think I'm handing over to Councillor Mike McCrory to talk about other support available for businesses.
Yeah, just before we, thank you. Just before we do that, I'll deal with the question from Kennedy in the chat, who was asking about soft play. And unfortunately, it is the government's decision that soft play areas can't open yet. And absolutely, it's a really difficult time for a lot of the some of the smaller businesses, and we would like to help if we can. So it may be that we're able to help with the next round of discretionary grants that are available. But please follow up the business advice pages that Councillor Davison just referred to, which you'll find on chelmsford.gov.uk. And the business support team at the City Council will do their best to help if they can and point you to any other support that might be available. So we'll do what we can, but unfortunately we do have to follow the government regulations on what can and can't open. So yeah, sorry. Councillor McCrory, what other support is available for businesses at the moment?
Yes, thank you. So we can help businesses get access to some free business support through support organisations like Colbia, Best Growth Hub and Back to Business Essex. And this has always been the case, actually. So these organisations might be able to provide help to find different streams of funding depending on your own business, because there are lots of other grants out there depending on your type of business. So examples would be if you are into low carbon work or innovative work. So they might also be able to help your business find savings and change the business model. So if you think this would help your business, please get in touch. And as has been mentioned on the Chelmsford City Council website, under advice for businesses, you'll see a whole list of organisations there, and there's some explanation alongside as to what those particular organisations are able to offer. So I understand that our business team have had lots of inquiries about commercial property recently as well. And so I'd just like to cover that point of how the council can help with this. So not everybody knows that we can help with commercial property. The council works with businesses and commercial agents to try and help you find the right size premises for businesses in our area. Understandably, we've had lots of inquiries from businesses wanting to downsize because of the situation with the pandemic, but we also have seen some needing larger premises because of the demands of social distancing. So businesses looking for premises can get in touch. Probably email is the best starting point. So economy@chelmsford.gov.uk, and one of the team there will be able to help you. And if I can follow on from that, please. I understand some businesses have been in touch with questions about how they can reopen safely and what advice are we able to give. So our business compliance team at Chelmsford City Council have been literally working around the clock and weekends, I have to say, helping lots of local businesses to open safely. And as most of you will know, recently they've been supporting restaurants, pubs and bars who can now open, and they've been providing advice to the beauty industry, businesses like beauticians and tanning salons, and working with them to ensure that they are COVID secure. So our economic development team can help you if you're struggling to interpret what the new guidelines mean for your company. So do please get in touch if you need help. And again, economy@chelmsford.gov.uk is the best way to make contact with our business advisors. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I wonder, one of the messages which has just come in the message box on is about limited companies who are working from home and therefore have no rateable value. Councillor Davison, are you able to comment on that? Paul McLean says the two of them work from home and hadn't set up PAYE, but they have a limited company working from home, so they couldn't furlough their staff and haven't received any other help and are having to borrow via a bounce back loan. Is there anything in the grant scheme to help?
Unfortunately, I don't think they're likely to qualify for the discretionary grant scheme. The government imposes constraints on what we can pay the discretionary grants out for. You would have to have not just a significant reduction in your revenues, you'd also have to have significant ongoing fixed property costs. And if you're working from home and don't have any other costs than your own home, then there would be no qualifying costs that would make you eligible for the grant scheme. Unfortunately, it's one of those where there are a number of schemes. There's the furlough scheme, the self-employed scheme, as I mentioned. There are loans that the government has tried to make available, but if you don't fall within the criteria for the grant schemes that we've been administering, unfortunately, we may not be able to help. But I'm happy to ask officers to look at that specifically afterwards.
Thanks very much. And also, as Councillor McCrory said, drop a query to economy@chelmsford.gov.uk for more general business advice. Okay, let's move on a bit. One of the other questions which has come in relates to some of the changes to the road and pavement system in the centre. And Jane Rolton says that she works in the city centre, walks to work every day, and thinks that the new one-way system which goes around in a circle from Victoria Road, Duke Street and New Street, but around the cathedral, she thinks that's worked really well, and could we consider making it permanent? Well, the first point I'd say is that as the City Council, we're not the Highways Authority, but we are very keen to encourage sustainable travel, cycling and walking, as well as buses. But cycling in this context, cycling and walking through the city centre is to be encouraged. And so the County Council was given some money by the government to put in place these emergency measures. They were put in place under emergency legislation and a traffic regulation order to make them apply for up to 18 months, but probably won't be 18 months, but certainly beyond the end of this year. That's now been put in place. So they are going to be around for a while. And the main purpose of it was to make the pavements wider so that people can socially distance whilst walking around the centre of Chelmsford. And there's some similar plans in Colchester. So this is something that we have discussed with the County Council. And on the City Council, we recently set up a working group for improving movement around the city. And that's chaired by Councillor Lager from Old Molsham, who's a keen cyclist and wants more and more people to be using that really efficiently. It's both a green and clean mode of transport. So we do want to encourage people to cycle around Chelmsford, and we want to see more cycle paths. Some work's been done in New Street. Work started yesterday on Broomfield Road, and so there are plans for finally, a long last, to have a cycle link between Great Baddow and the centre of Chelmsford. And so there are quite a lot of ideas in train. So we are certainly keen to see more measures that will make it easier to walk and cycle around the centre of our great city. So thank you for that. That's coming via the chat. And let's move on to another question which has come in. And and this relates to theatres and the Chelmsford City Civic Theatre, owned by the City Council. We've been asked about people getting ticket refunds on their tickets. Councillor Goldman, can you tell us what's happening with theatres?
Yes, thanks. It's a really sad time with theatres at the moment. I mean, obviously there's no sugarcoating it. The theatre isn't open, and we haven't got any performances going on, and lots of people had booked to go and see various different performances, and they're not being held. So of course, lots of people are getting refunds, and some people are saying they don't want refunds and they want to rebook in the future, but lots of people are asking for refunds. And about 3,000 of our customers have been contacted directly by the Chelmsford City Theatres team, by our box office staff, and we've given them refunds. So that's a lot of refunds that we've processed. Some tickets haven't either been refunded or a credit note given yet. And Ian Knowles, who's the artistic director at Chelmsford City Theatres, says that this might be for a number of reasons. But what he said is that around 30% of customers have not responded to emails from the theatre which have been sent to them during the period of April to July, asking if they'd like a refund or a credit note on shows that they've booked. Obviously, this could be for a variety of reasons. It may be that people don't want the refunds, or it may just be that they haven't seen the email that's been sent to them. So if you are one of those people, then do check in your junk mail folders, just to make sure that something hasn't gone in there by mistake and you haven't seen it. Sometimes people who book tickets are being contacted using the details they use for the booking, but sometimes these contact details are no longer in use. Maybe you've changed your email address, for example, or maybe used a work one that you don't have access to at the moment, or lots of different reasons why you might not have received the email. But if you really can't find it, then please do get back in contact. So if you still need a refund, then you can contact Chelmsford City Theatres on our box office email, which is boxoffice@chelmsford.gov.uk. The only thing I would ask is I know you've been patient already, and you probably want your money back, absolutely, but just bear with us because we are operating a skeleton staff at the moment. So if you don't get an immediate response, just give us a bit of time, and then obviously if you don't hear, then contact us again, but try that email address as in the first instance, and we will hopefully get round to you as soon as we can.
Great, thanks very much for that. So we hope the theatre can get back into business one day. Also, sort of on the cultural and leisure front. So talking more generally about our leisure centres, we've got some questions about the leisure centres reopening, and we've got questions coming through from residents who use the centre about how it will all work now that they are reopening. So, Councillor Moore, can you tell us what's happening with the openings and bookings?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Robinson. I'm very happy to be able to report that finally, Monday the 27th of July, we'll see all 4 of our leisure centres reopening. The leisure team are so looking forward to this. They've obviously been waiting with bated breath for some weeks. We need to be absolutely sure that everyone can be welcomed back safely. So, as with so much in modern life, you will find that the system is slightly different now. The most important thing is that anyone who intends to use the leisure centre has a One Chelmsford account, which comprises the account itself, and then you can have different levels of membership. The light card means that you pay as you go, or you can have a direct debit that means for a set amount every month you have full range of use of leisure facilities. The booking system needs to be adhered to be sure that we don't have overcapacity in the leisure centre. And we have set up a system that means that when you do book online, you can only book 1 session per day, and that's throughout the 4 leisure facilities that we run. So if you wanted to go for a swim at South Witham Leisure Centre and then pop to the Chelmsford Sports and Athletics Centre later to do some running, I'm afraid you can't do that on the same day. However, we'll be reviewing this regularly, and obviously guidance is changing all the time, and we hope very much to be able to build capacity through the reopening. So clearly, we'll we've got inquiries coming in about pool use. For the moment, there'll be no group swims, but we'll be reopening on a lane swim only. So if you have children, or perhaps you're not such a confident swimmer yourself, you would need to bear that in mind, because you need to be able to swim a full length of the pool, because there'll be a one-way system in operation. The learner pool will be in operation, but again, we've got limited numbers for that at the centre. 2 family groups and no more than 8 in the pool at any one time. So again, the message, please be patient, be kind, and we'll build back provision as soon as we possibly can to make everyone have a safe and enjoyable experience. I must also add that Paddy and Scott's within the Riverside Centre, which is our catering facility there, will also open on the 27th, but it will be for grab and go takeaway style service. So you can get cold drinks and hot and cold drinks, cold food and snacks. But you obviously won't be able to eat in due to the current guidance. And the ice rink will be opening on the 3rd of August. So once again, definitely booking online for that. And I'm afraid you will have to bring your own skates. There's no provision to hire anything at the moment. I hope that fills in some of the detail.
Thank you. Yeah, could you just say a little bit more about the Our Chelmsford cards and whether you've got is there a family, and how do a family book?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we've had a few inquiries from families. So as I said, everyone who uses the centres must have an Our Chelmsford account. There are different levels of membership. If you would like to link your family accounts together, there's a facility to do that online on the Leisure Centre's website in the section Online Sports Booking. And there you can request that your family accounts be linked, and then it will make it easier for you all to book a session together as a family. It's also worth mentioning at this point that although we're very pleased to be opening for essentially the start of the summer holidays, the sessions that you've been used to may well not be available for the time being. Because obviously pre-COVID, it was a very different setting. So sessions in the main pool, lane swimming, as I said, children are allowed. You need to be able to be a confident swimmer. And yes, we are limiting users of the learner pool to 8 at a time. So 2 family groups only in the pool. I do hope, though, that families will be returning and enjoying outdoor pursuits as well, such as cycling and enjoying the beauty of our waterways and our parks. So there's always plenty to do in Chelmsford, and make sure you get plenty of fresh air.
That leads nicely on to another question we've had about the summer holiday courses and holiday activities. We usually run quite a lot over the summer holidays. What are we doing differently this summer?
Well, again, the leisure team's been hard at work to try and provide a variety for young people to enjoy through the holidays. We're likely to have an offer through our leisure centres, but it's going to run for 3 weeks, we hope, from August the 10th. Again, booking system, and it will be in place at the leisure centres that have access to outdoor spaces. I can't give you more information for the moment, but rest assured it will be made available as soon as we have it. And please don't forget that our community sport team will also be running Play in the Park provision, which is a great system. It's travelling around Chelmsford to open spaces. There should be one near you, parish and unparish areas. And the first sessions, I believe, Chelmer Village on the 27th of July, runs right the way through to the end of August. Please look online, and you may well already have seen some Play in the Park posters locally on your parish notice boards or in community centres. And you please get in touch and do book. I understand that they're booking up very quickly, and there's a wonderful range of activities from entertainment and children's entertainers to a reptile workshop. No handling this time, but I very much hope that you'll be part of it and enjoy that service.
Thanks very much. A little bit related, but we just had a question come in from Louisa DeMarco, who says that as a parent of a 16-year-old whose education has been affected, I wondered if there are any city or the council-wide additional initiatives for online support for young people affected by the crisis on education and career choices. She also mentioned that because she's involved with a local youth group where she's seen a significant rise in contact from parents of teenage girls who are running away and being exploited since the crisis began. They need plans to support 16 to 18-year-olds with information. This, I think, is probably a question we need to direct to Essex Youth Service and Essex Social Care. And I know, Louisa, that you've been in touch before with us via the Youth Strategy Group, and that you know that Councillor Jude Deakin, with her county council hat on, is chair of the Youth Strategy Group. And hopefully we can take that up via that route. I previously shared on Facebook, there was a post a couple of weeks ago from the County Council about providing help and advice for parents. So there is a section on the County Council's website which may help a bit, but perhaps we'll talk outside of this via the Youth Strategy Group at the County Council. So we'll have to come back further on that, I think. And we've also just had a question from another question, I think, from Matt McCall, who says, would Chelmsford City Council consider a plaque or a statue to show gratitude to the NHS on behalf of the residents? Well, I think the NHS, as we know, has been phenomenal, but also so have all the other workers in the essential services right across our local authorities. So the police, the ambulance service in particular, obviously taking people to hospital. The people who work for the city council sweeping the streets. Also people working for the city council who've got helped homeless people, rough sleepers off the streets. And our housing team who have tried to help. We've seen an increase, sadly, in homelessness and domestic violence, and we've dealt with that. So I think we've all said fantastically well done to the NHS, but there's a vast array of other people work in retail as well, who have been working hard to keep the shops open so that we can all feed our families. So I think if we put statues up to all of them, I might say we run out of space, but we might run out of money to build the statues to say thank you to everybody who has risen to this challenge. And I haven't even mentioned all the volunteer help that we've had. I think we should value our public services staff by paying them properly and not just giving them a pat on the back, if that isn't a bit controversial. But anyway, so thank you for the question, Matt. Can I move on to another topic which has come in? Some of you have, residents around Chelmsford, have received emails from the council about registering to vote. And this was a surprise to some people because that hasn't happened before. Every year we communicate with the public on this. So I'm just reading this. We've had some calls to our customer service centre about voter registration and asking whether it's genuine. So Councillor Goldman, could you please explain how the process is working?
Yes, of course. Another good question coming in. So people have been saying, I've had an email asking me to complete information at householdresponse.com/Chelmsford, and is this genuine? And the short answer is yes, it is. But the longer answer explains what it is. And every year the electoral registration officers who work for the council are required by law to complete something called the annual canvass. And when you say the word canvass, it makes it sound like, us annoying politicians who knock on your door loads of times just before an election, or we like to think we talk to you all year round, but hey, we do talk to you maybe a bit more just before an election. And my word, there were a lot of them last year, so we probably knocked on your door several times. That's canvassing, but that's not what this is. So we're actually talking about the annual canvass, which is related because it's about making sure that people are registered to vote. And councils are required to do this every single year to make sure that the electoral register is up to date and that everybody who is eligible to vote is on that electoral register. And they do this by getting in contact with people. Now, for as long as I can remember, people have been contacted by a letter through the post, and it's arrived in a doormat, and it said, please fill in the names of the people who live here who are over the age of 18, and should be eligible to vote. This year, it's being done right the way across the country in a slightly different way. So we're starting off with sending this out by email. So asking people to, if we've got your email address for this purpose, then we're sending you an email saying, are these the right people in your household, who are eligible to vote? Please fill this in by visiting this householdresponse.com/Chelmsford website. This is actually part of reforms that have been put in by central government. They come from the Cabinet Office, and like I said, it is happening right the way across the country, not just in Chelmsford. And the email template and the response format that was actually set up by the Electoral Commission, the Cabinet Office, and the Electoral Management System. So these are like computer systems which are used, and there's various different ones used across the country by different councils. There's slightly different format for different councils. The problem is we have actually very limited access to be able to change those. So they come out in a particular format, and we can't change very much about it. And if I'm being honest, I would say that some of the information that's come out this year is possibly a little bit confusing. It doesn't quite look right, and we're learning from it, and unfortunately we have limited capability to be able to change it, but we are feeding back into the system so that hopefully next time around, next year, it will be much better. But don't worry, I mean, nobody will be missed out because of this method. So we're starting off, the idea is to start off with sending out emails and trying to get as many responses as we can out of that, and I think we've had something like 11,000 responses or something like that now, and that's brilliant because every single one of those responses means that we don't have to contact you by letter, which means that we don't have to send that letter out, which means we don't have to pay for the postage, which saves the council actually quite a lot of money. So if you can respond by email, please do, or when I say by email, I mean clicking on the link in the email and filling it out online. But if you can't do that, or you don't see the email or whatever, don't worry about it, because you'll get a letter in the post if you haven't responded to that email. So if you do get a letter though, just be aware that it may look slightly different to before. So research apparently has been carried out by the Electoral Commission and the Cabinet Office into making these letters as effective as possible. So you may notice a few changes this time around, but it is genuine. If you're ever concerned about anything that you get via email or in the post, you can always check with us. So please do, visit our website and check it out. And if you need to, then give us a call. Always do check it out if you're in any doubt whatsoever. But yes, this email is genuine. So please do fill it out if you can.
Thanks very much. Okay, moving on now. I've just seen a message we've had from Robert, who said, could we have more countdown timers on, like the one on Parkway, the Molsham Street crossing? Now he's got a good point. It's something that we need to raise with the county council, but that one was specifically put in because of a record of accidents at that point, and my understanding is that they are only put in at places where there have been accidents in the past. So I think that's the answer, but that's Essex County Council Highways query. I think that would take that up. Also, another question that we've had coming in was about littering. We mentioned earlier about, unfortunately, people are dropping masks on the floor, and there was a seagull that got caught up in a mask, so Councillor Moore, can you update us on what the City Council's doing about litter picking?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Robinson. As ever, it's a minority of people, but we have seen a huge increase in litter in the parks, along the waterways, and in the city centre, that's blowing out of bins that are perhaps overfilled because people aren't taking stuff home. in contrast to that, last week we had over 100 requests for litter picking equipment come into the council from the local community. And although we're not formally running community litter picks at the moment through the council, you can still contact us online and pick up the litter picking equipment from Freighter House. And we arranged for a special collection morning on the 17th of July for that purpose, for the huge number of requests we've had. And we would like to extend our thanks to everyone, the family groups especially, who've taken part. And we've seen some really incredible and admirable behaviour, especially from our young people who've cleared up areas where there have been raves, and really are helping to keep, just keep people safer, and certainly keep the environment and wildlife safer. And as you mentioned, Councillor Robinson, masks and gloves are still being thrown to the verges. And please be mindful of that, because somebody has to deal with it. It won't go away. It's in the ground for thousands of years if it's plastic. And it's certainly not the sort of behaviour that we would like to see. As regards litter picking, we're encouraging people who do book through the council to please take pictures of your treasures, and please send in those to our website so we can promote what you're doing on social media and try and build some stronger community spirit around litter, and encourage people to be responsible with that. Most of the people who use our parks and open spaces are responsible, but please don't use disposable barbecues, leave skewers lying around in open spaces. It's so hazardous. I've mentioned the medical equipment that we might see as well. We have hotspots everywhere in Chelmsford, and we know that the street care team have been increasing their own collections and making sure that we're keeping the streets as safe as we can. But, please, if you're having a picnic, when you finish your picnic, please take the stuff home with you, especially if a bin's overflowing, because it will help us all to manage that. And again, I hope that's helpful.
Great, yeah, thank you. We've also had a question about plastic recycling sacks. Are there more available if necessary?
We no longer give out extra rolls of sacks. That was something that we instituted last year following the declaration of our climate and ecological emergency and the action plan. As ever, this is a top-down legislation change that's really required long-term. It's about waste reduction, and plastic, as you will have seen, I'm sure, from being at home more and more and perhaps buying more than you normally would from shops. Bottled water, things that you take to work every day. There's just so much bulk in that. So although we have a very comprehensive recycling policy within the Chelmsford City Council for recycling different types of plastic, and we welcome that, the most important thing you can do when you're home recycling is to rinse everything well, to make sure you compact it well, put the lids back on bottles so that the air contains them and you create a vacuum, and then make sure that they're packed gently into the bags to not split them. And we provide households with a roll of, I think, 52 bags a year, so that's an average of 1 sack per week. If you do require more, you can purchase those online. They just need to be translucent, transparent enough that we can see that the contents are plastics. But we will not be changing our policy, and all we can do is encourage you to lobby MPs and supermarkets, put pressure on them to review the packaging, and where you can, shop in your markets, take reusable bags with you, cloth bags for your veg, and slowly, hopefully, we'll see an improvement in the amount of waste that's actually plastic that's coming into the system and ending up in so much of our world, including our waterways.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We've also had a question from Sarah that came in on Facebook earlier, and she asked about allotments, and she wondered whether it's possible to have a community allotment that's open to a group from the local association as a way of improving health and COVID-19 resilience. Can we do that, Rose, more?
Yes, we can. A community allotment is, yes, the name community allotment brings this to mind. You can have an individual tenancy, but you can also have a tenancy agreement through the council that's tailored for groups. So whether a community group, a group of friends, a group of young people, as long as there's a lead person who takes responsibility for the allotment and its supervision, they can be in charge, as it were, and then the community members can also then play their part and help share out the work on the allotment. And there's nothing better for us than to be outside and watching something grow, facing all the challenge of that and the joys when it pays off, sharing out your spoils with your allotment neighbours. And the council's allotments are well used, although there are vacancies on some of them. I know many people find there's a waiting list for ones that are within walking distance. But again, please visit our website. The most important reason for making sure that our allotments aren't left and that they're responsibly managed is so that weeds don't overload one particular plot and then start to take up residence on adjoining plots. It's a matter of proper community engagement and working together on the whole site to make sure that we run successful and healthy allotments. So yes, please visit the website. There's an online form if you would like to apply. And Sarah will be in touch with more information for you directly. And thanks once again for raising this. It's a matter close to my heart, and I'm very pleased that you're so engaged and you're so keen to see community allotments. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And if there are places around the city where we think there aren't allotments enough, then let us know about that and see where they need to be expanded. Robert's come back on your answer, Rosa, for about plastic sacks, and he thinks that he says, well, because there's a lack of sacks, plastic goes in the bin. Well, I think we'd all agree there's an important message here that we need to reduce the amount of rubbish that we create in the first place, and not just throw it all away. I guess one very slight reassuring thing is, although it's very expensive to empty the black bins, what goes into the black bin does get sorted. But anyway, let's move on. We're coming up to an hour now, so I think we've just got one last question that came in about volunteering. We've seen some fabulous people stepping up right across the district, across the country during the coronavirus crisis, and it's been really good to see people volunteering to help people who are isolating and shielding. Councillor Goldman, have we still got a COVID-19 volunteer group, and how else could people get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Robinson, you mentioned it just then. Actually, there are still people who are shielding, and there's still people who, especially, if you've tested positive for COVID-19, then you're self-isolating, and that makes things a lot very difficult. There are still plenty of volunteering activities related to COVID-19 that are still taking place, and they're being coordinated in Chelmsford by the CVS. And you can get in contact with them if you'd like to volunteer, and they do still need volunteers because as people are going back to work, that means they have less time to volunteer, and so we still need more people to keep on volunteering. So if you would like to volunteer, you can get in contact with Sally at the CVS by emailing her on volunteer@chelmsfordcvs.org.uk. Send her your name and your number and confirm that you'd like to be on the mailing list. I know that plenty of councillors are still volunteering as well, so we go out and collect prescriptions or deliver shopping. I know I've personally delivered some shopping from one lady to another lady, who they've been helping each other out. There's plenty to do. And also there are other volunteering activities going on as well. Volunteering, for example, in Chelmsford City Parks, we plan to restart those volunteering activities in September this year. Now, obviously, that's subject to the government's guidelines and the regulations in the context of what we can achieve and what's appropriate with social distancing and being COVID-19 secure. Existing volunteers have already been contacted via our mailing list, and preparations are in progress. But if you want to join in and volunteer, then please do. I think for me personally, I think that's one of if there are silver linings to come out of this pandemic, it is just seeing the sheer number of people that are volunteering and helping out and being part of the community, and that's absolutely fabulous to see. And I hope that continues, and I hope that people maybe have had a chance to volunteer for the first time ever, and have realised just how rewarding that can be and how much of a community spirit that builds. So I'd like to say a massive thank you to all of those of you who have been out volunteering already. A huge thank you to those of you who are thinking about volunteering and just need to send that email, please do. And also a big thank you to the Chelmsford CVS for doing such a great job in coordinating it all as well, and all the other organisations, all the other charities out there working and helping us all out at the moment. Yeah, so thanks very much. Do get involved.
Thanks very much for that. There's a couple more comments. I'd like to thank you to Sarah, Sarah Clark, who said she's been doing surplus food collection via the Ideas Hub. So yeah, thank you, Sarah, for that. And Louisa wants to encourage people to reduce plastic waste as well. So thank you for that comment. I hope you found this useful. We are going to look at doing this more regularly because we think it's been good. We've had the best part of 50 people, I think, sometimes a bit more. That some people will be watching it on. We even do catch up. This will be available to watch again if you really want to on YouTube. Tomorrow night is a meeting of the full council, and we've got some reports on there on finances and other annual updates on some of the internal business of the council. And we will also be discussing a motion against racism in Chelmsford and discussing what we can do about that. So please do tune in tomorrow, follow the link on our website. So for updates on any other services, whether to do with coronavirus or more generally, please go to our website at chelmsford.gov.uk. If you can't find the answer to your question, then fill in one of our inquiry forms and the team will get back to you. And we will also keep in touch via Facebook and Twitter, and do keep coming in with your ideas and questions. That's really good to hear from the residents of Chelmsford. It's something that we as the I was going to say new administration. We've been in the administration for just over a year now, but it's something we really want to encourage. There is a dialogue as we try and ensure that we're a better connected Chelmsford. So thank you for taking part. Thank you for your questions. It's been really good. And thank you to my cabinet colleagues, councillors Goldman, Davison, Moore and McCrory for taking part and answering the questions. I hope they're giving you the answers that you wanted. So please do get in touch if you've got any other queries, and we hope to be doing this again before too long. And please do check in on any other meetings. All our meetings, of course, are now online broadcast. So thanks very much for coming along this evening, and maybe you'll see us again soon. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.